Grand Rising all. Hopefully everyone's doing great this rising.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising.
Grand Rising Free, David Corey, everybody else. Oh, sorry, no sellout.
No, I'm just saying peace to everybody. Peace, y'all.
You know I gotta get it in one time. So what's going on, everybody?
Just updating everything real quick.
All right. How are the levels out there? Can everybody hear us? Grand Rising, Arthur Gray.
Mic check, mic check. Peace, David Corey. Peace, Arthur Gray, LJ.
Yeah, okay. Free says she can hear us. Cool. Today is what some consider hump day, right?
Yep. Hump day.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody got anything interesting going on in this hump day? Or anything interesting happened last night?
Conversations. Nothing mainly on my end, just talking to different people of the city to see what we can help out and what we can get start getting some work on the ground done in certain areas. That's just an update from on my end so far.
Okay. I know over here in the Woodbridge area of Virginia, Northern Virginia, 45 miles south of D.C., I had a couple of board meetings, and we're moving forward with some of the HUD and grant programs that we have in this area. And they're excited. A lot of people are starting to do their genealogy, and what you'll find, as I'm finding, as many of us have already found, is that all it takes is starting a conversation. Simple question. Have you heard that you had Indian in your family? Have you heard that your grandmother or great-grandmother was Indian? And start just asking those questions, and people respond. And they're I was surprised at the level of people that could actually tell me the name of the tribe. And of course, a lot of them say Cherokee, because as we know, when the Trail of Tears started pushing everybody out to Oklahoma, that's what a lot of tribes have fell up under.
Mm-hmm.
And you see people's backs stiffen up a little bit, and they raise their head when they realize that, hey, I have a choice in how I can classify myself now, opposed to what people want to call me, what I've been led to believe. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, great feeling, great time.
So no sellout. Did you finish the yard work yesterday? You know this is gonna be a running joke for the rest of the summer, right?
Yeah. I got a lot of the yard waste to the side of the road because it's trash day today. So I had to prune some trees. I did some work.
Okay.
I passed out last night, did I not? I'm saying Nikki had to retell me the story of how I wasn't on the phone or hung up manually.
So somebody in your family says, nah, he lying. That hesitation gave it away. And that came from Antonio. Grand Rising Antonio.
Hey, don't make me turn this camera on now. I got footage. I did some work.
Peace, Antonio.
Ex-landscaper talking crap.
Oh, Antonio does does or did landscape or have landscaping experience?
Yes.
Okay, so we definitely gonna need to talk to
He's
him.
on his own business.
He says I ain't sent the yards, and I know I ain't done it.
And he know it ain't done.
Man, you better, whatever.
Oh, he said I ain't seen the yard, and I know it ain't done. Wow. All right. Dude, they can't see you, but we can
He
see.
said hesitation gave it away.
We can see the yard is done. We can see the yard is done. The yard is done.
Thank you very much, TMH. No thanks to Tonio.
Wow.
You're supposed to fix the weed whacker while you were here last weekend. Thanks a lot.
Oh yeah. So now see now you're starting to see what accountability will do for you.
Grand Rising Copper Color Queen.
Speaking of which, we have to do a community spotlight on Copper Color Queen. When we gonna get that done, Bones? You like the way I threw you up under the bus, right?
Well, we can reach out and see if she's available for tomorrow evening. If we can go back and keep it on Friday evening how we had it so far. If her schedule is available.
Okay. Cool. Because I like to hear. I mean, we had the opportunity to speak with her about was it 2 weeks ago, and
yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think people will be encouraged to hear her story, and to hear who's in her tree, in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, we can set it for tomorrow. Suppose that she available after 1. So yeah, we'll reach out and set it up.
He said she gets off at 1 on Friday, so.
Whatever.
All right, cool things. So where we left off yesterday was with the Seneca. Okay, there are another Algonquin. She said she heard my laugh. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The Seneca are a group of indigenous Iroquois speaking people. So they're within the 6 nations of the Iroquois, Haudenosaunee tribe. They're one of the 3 federally recognized tribes in the state. There are 3 federally recognized tribes of the Seneca. 1 in New York, 2 in New York, Buffalo. Then they have the Seneca Cayuga Nation that's located in Oklahoma. Then they have one that's in Ontario, Canada. So we're just basically going over briefly of what some of the stuff that we covered yesterday. So for those of you who already listened, please bear with us because not everybody, listened yesterday.
Recap.
Of course, the tribe originated in the village called Nundawao, near the south end of the Canadiauga Lake, South Hill. Okay. They also had longhouses. They also had villages out in Schuyler County. Major Seneca villages were protected with wooden palisades and Ganon Dagon with 150 longhouses, and that was one of the largest ones in the village of the 17th century. While Chinuseo had 130 longhouses. You know, we've heard a lot about these longhouses. Have we ever looked up what the description of these longhouses are and how many people they can hold? Just out of
Yeah,
curiosity.
we have, but I don't think we've went into detail. I think it's like 6 different families can fit in one house or something like that.
All right, so I'm going to. I'm gonna pull this up. Then I'm gonna put it in the chat. Grand Rising, Oak Cliff Tiff. Hope all is well this rising. Oh yeah, we did go over this, but this was a while ago, so this will be a great refresher. So I'm gonna put the Wikipedia's definition of a longhouse. Again, I'm putting this in here so that you can follow along if you choose to, or if you're in a position to, because I know a lot of you all are listening from your mobile devices. But if you're able to look at it later, and if you're part of one of these tribes that reside in the longhouses, you can confirm or debunk this information. So it goes on to read that longhouses were a style of residential dwelling built by Native American tribes and First Nation band governments in various parts of North America. Sometimes separate longhouses were built for community meetings. Okay. It says the Iroquois, Haudenosaunee, or people of the Longhouse, who resided in the northern eastern United States as well as in eastern Canada, Ontario, and Quebec, built and inhabited longhouses. These were sometimes more than 75 meters or 246 feet in length, but generally around 5 to 7 meters wide. Scholars believe walls were made of sharpened and fire-hardened poles, up to 1,000 sprawlings for a 50-meter or 160 feet house, driven close together into the ground. Strips of bark were woven horizontally through the lines of poles to form more or less waterproof walls. Poles were set in the ground and braced by horizontal poles along the walls. The roof is made by bending a series of poles, resulting in an arc-shaped roof. This was covered with leaves and grass. The frame is covered by bark that is sewn in place and layered as shingles and reinforced by light swag. Light swag? Interesting. You have to find out what a swag is, because it's not how the young folks use it today. Doors were constructed at both ends and were covered with an animal hide to preserve interior warmth. Especially longhouses had doors in the sidewalls as well. Longhouses feature fireplaces in the center for warmth. Holes were made above the earth to let out smoke, but such smoke holes also let in rain and snow. Ventilation openings, later singly dubbed as smoke pipe, were positioned at intervals, possibly totaling 5 to 6 long, and roofing of the longhouse. Missionaries who visited the longhouses often wrote about the dark interiors. On average, a typical longhouse was about 80 by 18 and was meant to house up to 20 or more families, most of whom were maternally related. The people had a matrilineal kinship system, and properly an inheritance passed through the matrilineal line. Children were born into their mother's clan. Now, listen to this. I wanted to go back and speak about this. It said it was meant to house up to 20 or more families.
Mm-hmm.
One house.
One house. Mad chimneys.
So you figure you have 130 of these, and you housing 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people. So remember when we go ahead.
Oh no, my check is 20 or more families.
Families, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, families. So no telling what the number is inside the house.
A whole lot of.
So think about this. On average nowadays, the average household has how many families in it? One, right? The family consists of anywhere from, let's just say, two people to it could potentially as many as 10, right?
Mm-hmm. Single family home.
So basically, yeah, Free says it sounds like apartments or condos in a way, yeah. But you're talking about 20 families in under one roof. And I don't think they had walls. I'm sure they may have had built in some type of partitions or something. But can you imagine going from living like that to
Hmm.
having 4 to 5 people in a house? Basically one family.
So kind of lonely.
A Cliff says, 500 people in a dwelling I've seen. Wow. $500 people in one dwelling.
I can dig it. These structures are huge. It looks the ones that they drew up. So obviously they don't have anymore, but or maybe they do.
So that basically means we were very close. You had to be very close to be 500 deep in one unit, right?
Facts.
So we went from communal living to single residence homes. That was the goal. I just want to let that marinate for a minute. It said protective palisades were built around the dwellings. These stood 14 to 16 feet high, keeping the long house village safe. Tribes or ethnic groups in northeast North America, southeast of the Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, which had traditions of building longhouses, include the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Mohawk. The Iroquois-speaking Wyandot, also called Huron, and Erie also built longhouses, as did Algonquin-speaking Lenni Lenape, who lived from western New England to Connecticut along the lower Hudson River and along the Delaware River and both sides of the Delaware Bay. The Pamunkey and Algonquin-speaking Powhatan Confederacy in Virginia also built longhouses. Along the Shawnee were not known to build longhouses. Colonist Christopher Gist described how during his visit to Lower Shawneetown in January 1751, he and Andrew Montour addressed a meeting of village leaders in a kind of state house of about 90 feet long, with a light cover of bark in which they hold their councils. And if you think about it, for those who actually either live up north or been visiting up north, what structures today remind you of longhouses or a type of style of longhouses? Narrow in the front and long in width. Row houses, right?
Mm-hmm. Duplexes.
Mm-hmm.
Ranches. The ranches like that, long, short in the front, long in the back.
Copper Color Queen says they are huge and almost like wooden cabins. Free says we've really been fragmented. What a major lifestyle change. Exactly. David Corey says separated them and them have a hard time getting back together. Well, yeah. Broke up the family, or broke up the village, says Oak Cliff too. So, yeah, and Free says brownstones too.
Facts. And row houses.
Yeah, the majority of places, to be honest, the majority of places where mass amounts of us live now are still built that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, shotgun houses still standing today. Yep.
Yeah, everywhere we lived in mass amounts, if you look, those are the type of structures we lived in. And over time, our numbers dwindled. We became more individualists over time because you can see how it dwelled down and dwelled down and dwelled down. A couple of generations ago, everybody was living in grandma's house. So
I just wanted to share that so people can have a just not just people, but me. I can have a basic understanding of what I'm looking at or what vision is created in my head when I hear the word longhouse. And Ganondagan had 150 longhouses, while Chinusio had 130 longhouses. So these were villages. That's a lot of houses. That's a lot of people. So let's look at the Ganondagan village of Seneca. I don't like the depiction of this longhouse they got. This one looks like it's old and dilapidated, but so the Ganondagan State Historic Site, also known as Bowden Hill, is a Native American historic site in Ontario County, New York, in the United States. Location of the largest Seneca village of the 17th century. This site is the present-day town of Victor, southwest of the village of Victor. The village was also referred to in various spellings of Ganagaro, Gandagoro, and Gandagaro. It consists of two areas: a 245-acre Bowden Hill portion, the area of the longhouses and burial, has been designated as a National Historic Landmark. It has been identified as the location of the Jesuit mission of St. Jacques. What? It has been identified as the location of the Jesuit mission of St. Jacques, which was mentioned in the Jesuit Relations. The Fort Hill portion was the location of a fortified granary and consists of 33 acres. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The complex is operated by the state of New York. That's crazy. So this is a historic site now. So it's federally protected land. Free says they're tearing a lot of homes down systematically in Charlotte. Copper Cup Queen says they actually built some newer ones in Texas. Okay. So the Ganondagan State is now considered a historic site, and it's under the control of New York State. It says, like many indigenous people, the Seneca cultivated the Three Sisters staple crops: corn, beans, and squash. Women bred and cultivated different varieties of each staple, experimenting with a range of seeds. These crops were typically grown near each other so that beans could climb the cornstalk, and typically large leaves of squash would prevent weeds from growing. So they didn't need herbicides because they grew them together and they protected each other. Interesting.
Yeah, I read that. I read ahead and saw that. I was like, man, that's crazy. That's science right there.
Exactly. It says Ganondagan was once the largest Seneca town. The Seneca Nation was considered to occupy the western gateway of Haudenosaunee territory. This site is at the center of the story of the peacemaker who unified the 5 major peoples and created the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It survives to this day. So this is basically where the peace treaty, or the original peace treaty, was signed between the 5 nations. Seneca's oral tradition tells of a Huron man who arrived among the Mohawks speaking the Gayunishagowa, aka the Great Law of Peace. This prophet is known today as the Great Peacemaker. The Mohawk Oneida Cayuga pledged to join his proposed confederation, and following a dramatic interlude, the Seneca agreed also. The discussion about how to bring in the Onondaga took place in the Nadagan house of Chikanses or Chikanhasei, a Seneca woman elder now known as the Mother of Nations. She proposed a solution which eventually brought the Onondaga into the fold, for it gave them a prominent place in the Confederacy. She lived in the vicinity of Ganadagan and is buried nearby. Because of this tradition, the Seneca referred to Ganadagan as the town of peace. They revere and protect the burial site of Chickensassi. The relation to their great law of peace is more important than the attack that destroyed the village. For the people have carried forward their means of negotiating for solutions. Concepts of confederacy may have influenced early American political thinkers. Did y'all hear that? I don't think y'all heard that.
Do it again.
I don't think they heard it. I said, or it says, I gotta find it. It says, the relation to their great law of peace is more important than the attack that destroyed the village, for the people have carried forward their means of negotiation for solutions. Concepts of the Confederacy may have influenced early American political thinkers, although they gathered similar ideas from English and European thinkers. If it wasn't true, they wouldn't have mentioned it. If they didn't borrow some of the concepts from here, they wouldn't even have mentioned it. So for those that are saying that the way the politics is set up, the way that the bylaws are set up, the way that the towns are ran is the Europeans' setup, is false. You're hearing it come out of their own mouths that they got this stuff from our ancestors. So why is it that we're so reluctant to go back home? Grand Rising Macadam 1. I mean what's going on in the chat. Cool. And Antonio asks, so the idea of confederacy was an indigenous idea. Yeah. Now, they didn't call it confederacy, mind you. Confederacy is, I would dare say, an English word. And we can look up the etymology of confederacy, but the Five Nations had put their confederacy together based off of their peace treaty long before the Europeans came over here. So that's something that they got from us. So if they came over here, here's the thing you got to understand about being conquered. If you're a conquered people, they're basically going to take everything from you and give you their system. And at the end of the day, there is very little indication that they took anything from us. We gave stuff to them. Now, I could be wrong, but not only history, but oral traditions basically speaks along the same line. So, Tony says, which would possibly help explain why the natives supported the lords and landowners during the wars. I mean, that would explain it. That and the fact that they knew that, Antonio, they knew, meaning the council and the chiefs knew that by bringing in these Europeans who were also in high positions themselves, it could also strengthen their tribes. And Bones had mentioned numerous times that they're looking at it from a business standpoint. This wasn't a situation, a lot of these relationships weren't based off of love. It was based off of business and strength of the tribe. Being tribal meant putting the tribe first, and your feelings and the way you thought about things second. It wasn't about personal gain. It was about the betterment of the tribe. So now it's going to talk about the contact with the Europeans. But just remember that the great law of peace and the way that the treaties were designed and the way that the system was run, as they say, may have had, which basically means it definitely had some influence in the American political thinkers. So stop saying it's their system, because it's not, it's ours. It says contact with the Europeans. In 1656, Jesuit Father Pierre Joseph Marie Chaminade traveled from the Cayuga Nation to the Seneca Nation. Let's read this again. 1656, Jesuit father Pierre Joseph Marie Chaminade traveled from the Cayuga Nation to the Seneca Nation. So that means he went from one nation to the other nation. Now, can somebody help explain to me how he would know about the Seneca Nation? Who do you think told him about the Seneca Nation? The Cayuga Nation, maybe? It says, then having assembled all the elders of Ganadagan, the principal village of Sanatowan, the Seneca, and having bestowed the presents that are usually given as tokens of alliance, he commenced in a fervent and loud tone to explain the principal truths of the gospel, which he sealed with the free finest presents of all, which he had reserved for this purpose. What do you think some of those gifts could have been? Maybe alcohol? By the close of 1668, the Jesuits had established a mission in each of the 5 Iroquois nations. The Seneca and the mission at St. Jacques excuse me, have been assigned to Father James Freeman. The Seneca finally forced the missionaries to leave in 1684 after rising tension with the French. In 1669, Rene Robert Cavalier, Seigneur de La Salle, and Father Rene de Galigny traveled to Ganadagan via Irondequoit. Galigny wrote, the village, like all those of the Indians, is nothing but a lot of cabins, surrounded with palisades of poles 12 to 15 feet high, fastened together at the top and planted in the ground, with great piles of wood, the height of a man behind these palisades, the curtains being not otherwise flanked, merely a simple enclosure perfectly square, so that these forts are not defensible. That's what they sent back, meaning it's easy to attack. It says in 1677, Wentworth Greenhaw, an English colonial governmental official, traveled to the Iroquois nation and secured them as allies to the British. One of his stops was a Ganadaga, which he referred to as a Kanagora, and as a Kanagora, which probably because it was hard for them to pronounce all those syllables with the way that they pronounce or enunciate things. Kanagora rests on the top of the great hill, and that as well as in bigness, much like Onondaga, containing 150 houses northwestern of Cayuga, 72 miles. Here ye Indians were very desirous to see us ride our horses, which we did. They made great feast and dancing, and invited us when all ye maidens were together, both we and our Indians might choose such a like us to lie with. Whoa. Hold on.
You know what this is for me right now?
Go ahead. Spill it.
Deja vu from what we read yesterday evening when we all got together and what we touched on before we went on air. Remember we talked about the Mormons and the Southern Siouan tribes? Don't it sound like the same thing?
Yeah. But here's the thing that I find.
Just invite.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, how they invited these people over and how it was easy for them to teach it to the people. It's just wild, mind-blowing to see that it's not just one area. That's like the same formula used in different areas.
Antonio said he had a scary thought. He said, were we really conquered or just infiltrated through a coup? He said, shaking my head. Well, we were infiltrated after we opened the door. And Free's not buying the fact that they were excited to see them ride their horses. But the point that I am seeing here, it says, and again, this is their own writing. It says that hear ye Indians were very desirous to see us ride our horses, comma, which we did. They made great feast and dancing, invited us to lie with all ye maidens were together. Both we and our Indians might choose such as liked us to lie with. So they was basically offering their women to them. That's what it seems like. Now I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. It says Greenhall wrote that none of the Seneca towns were stockaded, and related to the following incident. The 18th going to Kanagora, we overtook ye prisoners. When the soldiers saw us, they stopped each his prisoner and made him sing and cut off their fingers and slashed their bodies with a knife. And when they had sung, each man confessed how many men in his time he had killed. That day, the Kanagora were most cruelly burnt, 4 men, 4 women, and 1 boy. The cruelty lasted about 7 hours. When they were almost dead, letting them loose to the mercy of ye boys, and taking the hearts of such as were dead to feast on. What? Now, is he talking about how they confessed to killing other people? Or is he talking about the cruelty that they committed against this tribe? So it looks like they basically tortured them to confess how many people they had killed or what have you. So I have to go back and read that some more because it makes sense, but it doesn't because it's written funny. I don't know. Did I put this in the I'll go ahead and put this in the chat, so just in case somebody wants to take a look at it, it might make sense to them. So I don't just want to leave y'all hanging with it. It says the documentary history of the state, New York, volume, chapter 1, article 2 of Wentworth Gillespie. Let me see this. Maybe. They ended up confused me more. Free says that's their way of villainizing the Indians in order to justify taking their land under the guise of religious conversion. That sounds about right, Free. So in 1678, Rene Robert Cavalier, Seigneur de La Salle, and Father Louis Hennepin traveled to Galadagan, which Hennepin called Targarandis. Hennepin remarked on the presence of Jesuits Julian Garner and Pierre Raffi, and a little chapel made of bark of trees. About the inhabitants, he wrote, "These savages are for the most part tall and very well shaped, covered with a sort of robe made of beavers and wolf skins, or a black squirrels, holding a pipe or calumet in their hands. The senators of Venice do not appear with a graver countenance, and perhaps don't speak with more majesty and solidity than those ancient Iroquois." So apparently they were taller than the Europeans, and they dressed in robes. But they called them savages. Interesting. Further proving what Free was talking about.
That false justification.
On June 13, 1687, Marquis de Donneville led an army from Canada, which consisted of 832 colonial regulars, more than 900 Canadian militia, and some 400 Indian allies. 400 Indian allies to eliminate the Seneca as competitors in the international fur trade. Wow. It's not personal, it's business.
I've been saying it. Business, international. Why else would European society be high up on fox furs, minks, and all these different things? Come on, man. Still to this day, that's high price fashion to them.
Has anybody ever, because I'm hearing them talk about these black squirrels, has anybody ever seen a black squirrel? Are they extinct now? Just wonder. It said the Seneca had been dealing with the English, and the French wanted to keep control of the lucrative fur trade. The conflict was part of what became known as the Beaver Wars. As the Iroquois also struggled to control their trade, Native American tribes fought each other too in trying to gain power in the fur trade. Danville writes that on July 13th, the French force closing in the Ganadagan, were attacked by a Seneca force of 800, but after a short engagement, they soon resolved to fly. Danville described the French casualties as 5 or 6 killed and 20 wounded, while the Seneca casualties were 45 killed and 60 wounded. However, a British report based on interviews of Seneca warriors states that the Seneca force consisted of 450 people, including 350 boys, 100 men, 5 women, who engaged as well as the men. I'm going to repeat that. However, a British report based on interviews of Seneca warriors states that the Seneca force consisted of 450 people, including 350 boys, 100 men, and 5 women who engaged as well as the men. The British report states that most of the villages had been moved that day to Cayuga and some to a lake to the south. As soon as the women and children were fled, they fired their own cattle. Abde Belamont wrote that the Seneca came to reconnoiter us. What? Reconnoiter us, and then went to burn their village and take to flight. Upon the French arrival at the village on the 14th, Deneville reports, "We found it burned and nearby fort abandoned. The French killed a vast quantity of hogs, and from the 4 Seneca villages they visited destroyed 1.2 million bushels of stored and standing corn. The force turned west and destroyed the village, the Toy Katan, before returning to their boats in Iranikot." So, based on what was written, they didn't defeat this village. The village left and burned down their own buildings, and then the French tried to claim victory. Am I reading this right?
Mm-hmm.
Grand Rising Big Hawk, Grand Rising Trabab. It says, after the battle, the community movement was checked by a disaster of the French invasion and turned eastward. The 2 villages, Gandagora and Gandogara, seems to have joined in this eastward movement to have settlement first at Canada Igua and later in the region east of Canada Igua Lake. During the American Revolutionary War, the Sullivan Expedition of 1779 attacked the Seneca in scattered towns at Geneva, Canada Igua, and along Seneca Lake, New York. So that's one of the historical sites for the Seneca. Thoughts?
It's just wow. It's just wow. but it constantly shows the split of the tribes.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that the thing that continues to challenge me, or I continue to find a challenge with, is that we did it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. By trying to get better leverage and position on each other.
Because it's already a known fact. History from the Europeans' purview, oral history and written history from the tribes' purview, confirms that tribes were already intermarrying to have and gain and keep control of power. So that wasn't something that was new. So that wasn't something that they got from the Europeans. But when they started dealing with the churches, I'm just going to say churches because that covers everybody from the Quakers all the way down to the Jesuits to the Mormons. These religious entities opened the door for them to accept conversion and to accept these European leaders into their lives and intermarry.
Mm-hmm. Some tribes invited them.
Yeah. And the more we read, and that's the reason why I always like to go into the side stories or click on things that I highlight, because if we don't, this stuff we wouldn't know. Because they just give you the surface information, and then people are left wondering or guessing or creating their own. Tree says, why? You know why. Leverage, power, control, greed, same old, same old. Same old, same old. So now I'm back on the page that talks about the Seneca as a whole or as a people. So it says the Seneca had two branches, the western and the eastern, each branch distinct. They were individually incorporated and recognized by the Iroquois Confederacy Council. The western Seneca lived predominantly in and around Genesee River, gradually moving west and southeast along the Erie and Niagara rivers. So we have read that earlier. Then it says west and north were under constant attack from powerful Iroquois brethren, the Huron, or Wyandot, to the south. The Iroquois-speaking tribes of the Susquehanna also threatened constant warfare. The Algonquian tribes of the Mohican blocked access to the Hudson River in the east and the northeast. In the southeast, the Algonquin tribes of the Lenape people, Delaware, Benissink, and Esopus, threatened war from eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the lower Hudson. So the Seneca was surrounded by tribes on basically four sides. Yeah, Fred, I know. I'm just playing. The Seneca used the Genesee and the Allegheny rivers as well as the Great Indian War and trading path to travel from southern Lake Ontario into Pennsylvania and Ohio, Merrill Arch, the land of Senecas, and Empire State Books. The eastern Seneca had territory just north of the intersection of the Chemung, Susquehanna, Tioga, and Delaware rivers, which converged in Tioga. The rivers provided passage deep into parts of eastern and western Pennsylvania, as well as east and southeast into Delaware water gap, and western Catskill. The men of both branches of the Seneca wore the same headgear. Like the other Haudenosaunee, they wore hats basically, with dried corn husk on top. The Seneca had one feather sticking up straight. Traditionally, the Seneca Nation's economy was based on hunting and gathering activities, fishing, and cultivation of varieties of corn, beans, and squash. These vegetables were the staple of the Haudenosaunee diet and were called the Three Sisters. Seneca women generally grew and harvested varieties of the Three Sisters, as well as gathering the processing medicinal plants, roots, berries, nuts, and fruits. Seneca women held sole ownership of all the land and the homes. Seneca women held sole ownership of all the land and the homes. The women also tended to any domesticated animals such as dogs and turkeys. The Iroquois had a matrilineal kinship system. Inheritance and property descended through the maternal line. Women were in charge of kinship groups called clans. Children were considered born into their mother's clan and took their social status from her family. Their mother's eldest brother was generally more of the major figure in their lives than their biological father, who did not belong to their clan. So, in the Iroquois or the Haudenosaunee way of life, it was traditional, I guess for lack of better terms, for the Iroquois women or the Haudenosaunee women to marry men outside their tribes, men outside their clans. It says the presiding elder of a clan was called the clan mother. Despite the prominent position of women in Iroquois society, their influence on the diplomacy of the nation was limited. I disagree with that. If the clan mothers did not agree with any major decisions made by the chiefs, they could eventually dispose them. So see how this is double talk? It says, despite the prominent position of women in Iroquois society, their influence on the diplomacy of the nation was limited. If the clan mothers did not agree with any major decisions made by the chiefs, they could eventually depose them. So if you could eventually depose the chief, then how could you not have influence?
Mm-hmm. You got to remember, a lot of the Europeans didn't like that.
Right.
So that's why they wrote bad about it or didn't speak about it. Because in their culture, women didn't have a status. Matter of fact, they didn't get their rights until
1920.
There we go again.
So it says Seneca people lived in villages and towns. Archaeologists' excavations indicate that some of these villages were surrounded by palisades because of warfare. These towns were relocated every 10 to 20 years as soil, game, and other resources were depleted. During the 19th century, many Seneca adopted customs in their immediate American neighbors by building log cabins, practicing Christianity, and participating in local agricultural economy. Another misnomer. They said they relocated every 10 to 20 years as soil, game, and other resources were depleted. They did that so they wouldn't ruin the soil. They gave the soil a chance to rest. Anyway.
What were them Indian agents charged for doing again?
Changing the
convincing
culture.
the Indian the agricultural practices.
Mm-hmm. By convincing them to change their agricultural practices, you keep them there, and they don't migrate. Or if they do migrate, you take their land because when they come back, it's gone. You figure if you migrate every 10 years, basically mean you're going from one territory to another. 9 times out of 10, you're probably switching three territories, right? So you won't see your land again for another 20 years. So by the time you come back, you got squatters. I'm sorry, go ahead.
In law, does it take for land to become delinquent?
I don't remember. Does anybody know? Let me see. Yeah, Free says that was a very important aspect of indigenous culture, allowing a period of time for the land to rest. He said it depends on the state that you live in. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm sure they adjusted the laws for their favor. Yeah, I can't. I'm not able to pull it up that fast, but you can find out later. Adverse possession of squatters' rights. She says, Free says adverse possession of squatters' rights varies based on jurisdiction. So. So guess who we come across again? Seneca Chief Corn Planter. Contact with the Europeans. During the colonial period, the Seneca became involved in the fur trade, first with the Dutch and then with the British. This served to increase hostility with competing native groups, especially their traditional enemy, the Huron or Wyandot, an Iroquois-speaking tribe located near Lac Toronto in New France. It says in 1609, the French allied with the Huron and sent out to destroy the Iroquois. The Iroquois, the Huron or Wyandot, waged war until approximately 1650. Led by the Seneca, the Confederacy began a near 35-year period of conquest over surrounding tribes following the defeat of its most powerful enemy, the Wyandot. The Confederacy conducted mourning wars to take captives to replace people lost in a severe smallpox epidemic in 1635. Through raids, they stabilized their population after adopting young women and children as captives and incorporating them into their tribes. By the winter of 1648, the Confederacy led by the Seneca fought deep into Canada and surrounded the capital of Huronia. Weakened by the population loss due to their own smallpox epidemics, as well as warfare, the Wyandot unconditionally surrendered. They pledged allegiance to the Seneca as their protector. The Seneca subjugated the Wyandot survivors and sent them to assimilate into the Seneca homelands. So you're talking about a 35-year period they fought. And Free says, plus you have, and this is talking about adverse possession, she puts that, plus you have to request whoever took your land leave within a reasonable time, which varies. So in order to have them leave, you have to have them removed at a certain time. If not, then squatters' rights prevails. But let's look at this Wyandot Seneca War.
Hold on, TMH, 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Something just came into mind. We're overlooking one entity, and this one entity has been around and is responsible for taking down more majority of people than any other entity in the history of this country.
What's that?
IRS, taxes, property liens. It only takes 6 months to 2 years for you to be delinquent on there, and they can put a lien on the property. If these people were gone for up to 30 years, think about it. What was the government doing? They were patenting land. What allowed them to patent land? They patented the land, so now they can charge taxes on it. These people wasn't on the land. So now you don't pay them taxes back, they seize the land. It would make sense why a lot of them tribes had to buy the land back, because through taxes, they no longer owned it. The IRS is responsible for bringing down every major entity at any given time through taxes.
Wow.
Taxation without representation, let's not forget, set off everything. What was the Indians' beef? They weren't supposed to be getting taxed. It was a business deal and somebody reneged.
The government. Right, you're right. A Cliff Tip says, tithes, taxes. He says, great perspective, Bones.
Because we do know there was Indian tax records. Indian tax records for what?
The land. That's how they were able to put them into indentured servitude, and eventually sharecropping, and eventually allowing the immigrants to come over and sit on these lands, and eventually take over the lands.
Because if you wanted to keep your property, you had to all of a sudden, you had to come up with an income. So that means you would have to bring in employees and workers to maintain this income to pay these property taxes. At a time before when ain't nobody believe in owning a land and ownership. They implanted a mechanism. Taxes. We were doing everything else before they got here. If we gave them something, what all did we take from them?
Probably nothing.
Taxation.
Oh, you said what did we take from them? Okay, I got you.
Taxation. Think about it. That's foreign to our ancestors. And our ancestors' spiritual belief, they didn't believe on the taxation. Because to them, you couldn't own anything. So if you can't own anything, therefore you can't believe in taxes.
Right.
They brought in the whole concept of ownership. That form of commerce. Yes, we had commerce and trade, but it was trade goods for goods.
Right.
They bought that commerce system that they had, and a lot of these chiefs and stuff. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. A lot of people start things with no money involved. They start seeing them ducats' eyes get big. People start doing backdoor deals. I mean, come on, we see it still to this day.
Yeah.
The mechanism ain't new. It has to be something that's embedded in everybody for it to work.
That's real. Can't disagree with you on that.
And the easiest way to convert an Indian into paying taxes through the church. Think about it. You took on a religious system. So if you convert it to the religious system, which is based on paying tithes, taxes, why wouldn't you do it in your regular life if you adopted this new spiritual life?
Cliff Tiff asked if we get an email about number 11. Cliff Tiff, we will check that and get back with you on it. You're right. I wasn't even thinking about the taxes. Because all this stuff was going on while the wars are being fought. You're welcome. It also talks about 1650, the Seneca attacked and defeated the neutrals to their west. In 1653, the Seneca attacked and defeated the Erie to the northeast. To the northwest, survivors of both the Huron and Erie were subjugated to the Seneca and relocated to the Seneca homeland. The Seneca took over and vanquished tribes' traditional territories in western New York. In 1675, the Seneca defeated the Andaste, Susquehanna, and southeast. Confederacy's hegemony extended along the frontier from Canada to Ohio, deep into Pennsylvania along the Mohawk, and into the lower Hudson in the east. He sought peace with the Algonquin-speaking Mohegan, who lived along the Hudson River within the Confederacy. Seneca power and presence extended from Canada to what would become Pittsburgh, east of the future Lackawanna, and into the land of Minisink on the New York-New Jersey border. Then it reads to say that the Seneca tried to curtail encroachment of white settlers. This increased the tensions and conflict with the French to the north and west, and the English and Dutch to the south and east. As buffers, the Confederacy resettled conquered tribes between them and the European settlers, with the greatest concentration of resettlements on the lower Susquehanna. Grand Rising Carrier Bay, Grand Rising Golden Moon, hope all is well. In 1685, King Louis XIV of France sent Marquis de Denonville to govern New France in Quebec. Denonville set out to destroy the Seneca nation, and in 1687 landed a French armada of Irondequoit Bay. Denonville struck straight into the seat of Seneca power and destroyed many of its villages, including the Seneca's eastern capital of Ganadaga. Fleeing before the attack, the Seneca moved further west, east, and south down the Susquehanna River. Although great damage was done to the Seneca home, the Seneca's military might was not appreciably weakened. The Confederacy and the Seneca moved into an alliance with the British in the east. Seneca's expanding influence and diplomacy. In and around 1600, the area currently comprising Sullivan, Ulster, and Orange counties of New York was home to the Lenape Indians, and Algonquin-speaking people whose territory extended deep along the coastal areas of mid-Atlantic coast up into present-day Connecticut. They occupied a western part of the Long Island as well. The Lenape Nation was Algonquin-speaking and made up the Delaware, Minisink, and Esopus bands, and differentiated according to their territories. These bands later became known as the Munsee, based on their shared dialect. The Munsee inhabited large tracts of land from the middle Hudson into the Delaware Water Gap and into northeast Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey. The Esopus inhabited the mid-Hudson Valley, Sullivan and Ulster counties. The Minisink inhabited northwest New Jersey, and the Delaware inhabited southern Susquehanna and Delaware water gaps. The Minisink Esopus Trail today's route. The Minisink Esopus Trail, today's Route 209, helped tie this world together. Because we all know that many of the roads that we have today were just basically paved over trails that our ancestors paved. So To the west of the Delaware Nation were the Iroquois-speaking Andastes, Susquehanna. To the east of the Delaware Nation lay the encroaching peoples of Dutch New Netherland. From Manhattan up through Hudson, the settlers were interested in trading furs with the Susquehanna occupied territory in and around current Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as early as 1626. The Susquehanna were struggling to get past the Delaware to trade with the Dutch in New Amsterdam, today Manhattan. In 1634, a war broke out between the Delaware and the Susquehanna, and by 1638, the defeated Delaware became tributaries of the Susquehanna. The Iroquois Confederacy to the north was growing in strength and numbers, and the Seneca was the most numerous and adventurous, began to travel extensively. Eastern Seneca traveled down the Chemung River to the Susquehanna River. At Tioga, the Seneca had access to every corner of Muncie Country. Seneca warriors traveled the forbidden path south of Tioga to the Great Warrior Path to Scranton, and then east over Menacing Path through the Lord's Valley to Menacing. The Delaware River Path went straight south through the ancient Indian towns of Cookhouse, Cochitown, and Menacing, where it became the Mincy Path. Using these ancient highways, the Seneca extended influence in what is today Ulster and Sullivan counties from the Dutch colonial area onward. Historical evidence demonstrating Seneca presence in the lower Catskills include: in 1657-1658, the Seneca visited the diplomats, Dutch colonial officials in New Amsterdam. 1659 and 1660, the Seneca interceded in the First Esopus War, which was going on between the Dutch and the Esopus at current-day Kingston. The Seneca chief urged Stuyvesant to end the bloodshed and return the captured Esopus savages. In 1675, after a decade of warfare between the Iroquois, mainly the Mohawk and Oneida, and the Adaste Susquehanna, the Seneca finally succeeded in vanquishing their last remaining great enemy. Survivors were colonized in settlements along the Susquehanna River and were assimilated into the Seneca Cayuga people. In 1694, Captain Eric Schuyler, in an official report, described the menacing chiefs as being fearful of being attacked by the Seneca because of not paying wampum, tribute to these Iroquois. Around 1700, the upper Delaware watershed of New York and Pennsylvania became home to the Menacing Indians moving north and northwest from New Jersey, and the Esopus Indians moving west from mid-Hudson Valley. I mean, this is just a chronologically of people that they've conquered and politics that they were involved in. Whether it was with the Dutch, the English, the Esopus, Mohawk, or Oneida. So this was a big tribe, and they were very instrumental in conquering a lot of upstate New York and moving west. This is crazy. Grand Rising, James Gilmore. So it seems that the Seneca, who are fighting on behalf of the British in the Revolutionary War, were a very powerful tribe. And they were very influential because it appears that, according to this, that some of the chiefs feared them. And they are part of the Five Nations. And they joined the Five Nations in the treaty before the Europeans even got to the United States. Europeans even got to the Americas. So, I don't know.
Yeah, Copper Color Queen sent something in I want to read real quick.
Go ahead.
It's U.S. Legal Squatters' Rights, Law, and Legal Definition. Squatters' rights is a legal allowance to use the property of another in the absence of an attempt by the owner to force eviction. This right may eventually be converted to title to the property over time by adverse possession. If recognized by state law, squatting is an old, casual word for occupying a place that legally belongs to someone else when that owner hasn't given permission for the occupation. Squatter's right is an assertion that someone is entitled to own land after he's been squatting there. The legal name for squatter's right is adverse possession. The doctrine of adverse possession discourages disuse of property. According to the doctrine, if property was abandoned and someone else squatted on it, for a number of years, the squatter could gain control over the land. If the squatter abandons the property for a period, or if the rightful owner effectively removes the squatter's access, even temporary during the stationary period, or gives his permission, the squatter loses the benefit of that possession. If that squatter later retakes possession of the property, that squatter must, in order to acquire title, remain on the property for a full stationary period, after the date on which the squatter retook possession. However, One squatter may pass along continuous possession to another squatter, known as tacking, until the adverse possession period is complete. In the United States, squatting laws vary from state to state and city to city. Makes sense why they pass it down through their family, huh?
It seems like it's just another way for them to take land, or a legal way for them to take land, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you've gone for 30 years.
In some cases, I mean, the way you look at it, all you need to be gone is 10, because the way that the Seneca moved, they moved every 10 years. So if you figure you have enough acreage to leave behind for 10 years, and you don't see it for 10 to 15, you come back and you got somebody, that's enough time for somebody to build a house and raise a family.
A small town.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about squatters.
Wars that they try to make us believe are wars was tribes coming back to their land and running squatters off. Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears.
You know, somebody's been sleeping in my bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Weird. Say the very least. I don't even like using that word. It's appropriate today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that we come across the Seneca and Seneca chief corn planter, because we came across
No, not the which one? I remember when I did
the one about Trump and the Bushes.
Oh, I know we was talking about it. I can't remember who originally sent the article. I can't remember if I pulled it or somebody sent it.
So I'm gonna put this link in the chat.
I know it came about during the process of doing these chiefs over the last couple of weeks. Then you find that a lot of your presidents and political families tie back into tribes.
Okay, thanks. Somebody says I'm not going. Hold on.
Because corn planter, the Bushes are related to the corn planters. And even though it's that line started by marriage, we know tribes, by that rule, adopted them in as tribal members. So allowing them to have particular rights as tribal members. It gets deep. Tightening them seatbelts.
Could you do me a favor, if you can, and read off how the Bushes, because you did it yesterday, but just so people can get a recap, and it'll make things a little bit clear when we read this article that Donald Trump dropped about the Bush family. How the Bushes, or just read who's related to corn planter and how. Can you do that for me, please? Or if you have access to it.
Yeah, let me pull it up, y'all. Give me like probably 1 minute.
And the reason why this is important is because if you don't understand how people are tied into certain tribes, or how certain things are done, or the reason why President Trump is appearing to go hard or go in on these American Indians and why he seems to be under attack, and you don't have the history of it because you know, not paying attention, then it'll be something that will pass by you, and you will basically miss the jewel or miss the information and miss why things are happening, how they're happening, as fast as they're happening. Thus, you'll be missing an opportunity, so to speak, which we have been missing since 1968, some of us. So, again, understanding that we're going to state that a lot of these political figures, presidents, people in the House, people in the Senate, have ties to Indian tribes and ties to the land. And not only to Indian tribes, but to chiefs like Corn Planter. And why is that important? Well, that's important because you can't kick them off this land if they tied to us, number one.
I found out. I pulled it up, put it in the chat.
And number two, you'll understand exactly why this article that we're about to read and why we put up the the heading of the section 3, because it's going to make a lot more sense. And then hopefully you'll be paying attention to what's going on in your neighborhood and you'll be able to see what's going on. So go ahead, Bones. Thanks.
All right. Corn Planter's genealogy of well-known political figures start with Philip Livingston, and he's the signer of the Declaration of Independence, third cousin, first time removed. Next relative, Theodore Roosevelt, 26th U.S. President, third cousin, 3 times removed. Next up, Eleanor Roosevelt, First Lady of President, Franklin D. Roosevelt, third cousin, 4 times removed. Next up, Thomas Edison, inventor, 4th time cousin, 2 times removed. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 32nd U.S. President, 4th time cousin, 4 times removed. George H.W. Bush, 41st U.S. President, 4th cousin, 6 times removed. George W. Bush, 43rd U.S. President, 4th cousin, 7 times removed. Jeb Bush, 43rd Governor of Florida, 4th cousin, 7 times removed. I also put the source in the chat, so if you want to see it for yourself, and you can also click on each individual and it shows you more of their line, how they tie into more people. And I'll post it one more time. Crazy.
So Corn Planter is connected to at least 3 presidents. Roosevelt and both Bushes, correct?
Yep.
Does anybody wanna bet that there are other presidents and other officials, political officials that are connected to
Yesterday we dropped Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possibly be anymore, right?
Say again, say again.
No, I'm just making sure that there couldn't possibly be any more, right?
What? Say what's coming again?
I think you just did all of them, right? That was it, right?
No, we only did the Bushes and Clinton.
Wait a minute, how many presidents?
And don't forget Roosevelt.
Yeah, Roosevelt's popped up so far, and that's just off of just think about it. Ain't doing no purposeful research on it. I am now, but
yeah.
Clinton go all the way back to forgot the chief name, but he's from Ottawa, and his father was French.
So there has to be all of the presidents that's connected to chiefs, right? Right? No?
Nope.
They're the president of this land.
The only 3 that we know of, what was it? Lincoln shot in the head, Kennedy shot, and now we got Trump who's going after them with no remorse.
So why are we bringing this up? Well, we're bringing this up because we wanted to show you the power of knowing who you are and how you're tied into this land. So let me go ahead and put this article in here. About Jeb Bush. Not Jeb Bush, but was it George W. Bush?
Please have your hard hats on for this. Please, hard hats and steel toe boots for this section right here. Please, please.
Grand Rising Smoking Big 06. Right now we're talking about how the Bushes are tied into their tribe and how it affords them to do certain things, and it helps us understand why certain laws are passed and why it appears that the rich keep getting richer. So, according to this article, Who, What, Why, Controversial, Credible, Courageous, the headline reads, Trump is right. How JEB'S Big Bro seized private land to get rich. That's the title. And then the subtitle goes on to read, The Story of George W. Bush, the Texas Rangers Stadium, and Eminent Domain. So it goes on to read that the other day, Donald Trump mentioned that Jeb Bush's brother, George W. Bush, used eminent domain, government seizure of private land, in order to build the baseball stadium that helped make his fortune and position him for a political career. Eminent domain, of course, runs counter to private property values, which are dearly held by many Republican voters. Fox News asked Jeb about this, and he says, I don't think eminent domain should be used for private purpose. The candidate said, looking awkward, as he so often does. I don't know what my brother did or not. In this case, Trump, who so often blows smoke, was spot on. And since Jeb is unfamiliar with the background, we've decided to reprint a chapter in my book on the Bush clan, Family of Secrets, dealing with the baseball team and the land deal. It's about the privileges of the sort you and I don't have. Feel free to send it along to Jeb. Now, what I want y'all to pay attention to is that nowhere does it mention the lineage or the family ties that the Bushes have to tribes, right? So, pay attention to that. Then it says it's about the privileges of that sort that I don't have, that you and I don't have. So, what privileges could he be talking to? The situation to where the rich keep getting richer because of privilege, right? So keep that in mind as I read this. So I'm reading a chapter from this book. Here is chapter 17 of the book, Family Secrets, the Bush Dynasty, America's Invisible Government, and the Hidden History of the Last 50 Years, by Who, What, Why editor and Chief Russ Baker. Okay. W was not quite the baseball player his father and grandfather had been, but he was the master of certain kind of pitch. In the days leading up to the 1988 election, he was on the phone constantly making sales calls, though not for his father's candidacy. As Bush family advisor Doug Weld recalled, it was intensely to sit and listen to him pick up the phone again and again and say, well, we're going to buy a baseball team. Want to buy a baseball team? Maybe George W. Bush felt that his father's election was in the bag, or maybe he was in a hurry because he thought it was less unseemly for the son of a vice president seeking the presidency to be soliciting funds for personal reasons than for the son of a sitting president to be doing so. Whatever his reason, at the particular moment, baseball was on his mind. W. which has a genuine affection for America's pastime. But his decision to acquire the Texas Rangers baseball team was not just about fun. He was creating a legend and would set him on the path to the presidency. How could a man with so few accomplishments be made with an impressive public figure? How could a fellow who had few prospects of honestly earning a fortune be set up in the sort of lifestyle he and his friends expected? Such questions were certainly on the mind of his informal political advisor, Karl Rove, although the Bush forces would claim that W had not seriously thought about running for higher office until well into the 1990s, as far back as Poppy's inauguration. Rove had been letting reporters know that there was nothing Bush Bush waiting in the wings. There was another Bush waiting in the wings. In fact, W's name was floated as a possibility for the 1990 Texas governor's race. But W's mother publicly opposed this bid because the concerns that a loss would be seen as a referendum on Bush Sr.'s presidency. Even back then, Rove was envisioning a path for him and his friend straight to the White House. The Texas governorship would give W a base and a bucket load of electoral votes to start with. So in the final days before his father's victory over Democrat Michael Dukakis, George W. Bush was looking toward his own future. First, a brief baseball baptism as a public figure, then political office. Mostly he was talking about his plan with the Rangers. And governor back then, recalled Reed, it was Rangers and Governor Rangers. Rangers. Anyone seeking a path to the big leagues could do worse than owning a ball team. George W. Bush and his cadre well understood that a winning sports play, like a steady spot in a forward church pew or an art museum with one's name on it, accorded instant points and went a long way towards ameliorating deficiencies, particularly moral ones, on other fronts. The Bushes and their friends had ownership stakes in a lot of teams: the Reds, the Mets, the Tigers, and other favorites. It all started with W's great-grandfather George Herbert Burt Walker, who was a force behind professional golf Walker Cup. In fact, the introduction of golf itself into America. He also was a prominent booster of the New York Yacht Club, professionals tennis, and premier horse racing. This family legacy culminated in George W. Bush's successful effort at capturing a new continuity known as the NASCAR voter. Of course, being associated with the sports offers obvious benefits in terms of pleasure and ego, but there is little question that Bush Group was adept at leveraging yet one more beloved American institution. As would be demonstrated by the Supreme Court that would decide the 2000 election in W's favor, getting a fair break for oneself begins with knowing the referee. Peter Ueberroth, the baseball commissioner at the time W's group acquired the Arlington, Texas Rangers, was known to be looking for opportunities in politics as he left baseball in 1989, the year Poppy took office. When they say Poppy, they talk about Senior. One source close to the negotiations told the New York Times that after W had failed to persuade the wealthy Texan Richard Rainwater to join the investment group, Ueberroth himself had approached Rainwater and suggested that he team up with Bush, at least partly, out of respect for his father. As commissioner, Ueberroth was succeeded by Bart Giamatti, an Andover alum who, before president of Yale, he was succeeded by Fay Vincent, another old friend of the Bushes, who had roughnecked in the oil business in Midland and even lived at the Bush's house briefly when W was growing up. W was relentlessly optimistic about his plans to get into baseball. He'd get off the phone after somebody said no, and there was not even the slightest disappointment or discouragement, recalled Doug Weed. You couldn't see a whiff of self-doubt. I thought, man, he'd be a great salesman. He doesn't even have any sense of rejection. Not that there was not too much rejection. Smart men, and it was virtually only men who invested, knew that this was a good moment to be in business with George W. Bush, the president's son. Family and friends understood the plan. Turn a nobody with a famous name into somebody. And while you're at it, use a famous name, insider connections, and the implied glamour of the project to make a bundle. According to Comer Cottrell, a black Republican hamper products entrepreneur who put up $500,000 to become limited partner, George brought a lot to the table just by being a president's son running for governor. Everybody wanted to know him. Bush paid $600,000 in borrowed money for a 2% stake in the Rangers. However, he secured the generous proviso that his share would jump to 11% once the partners had gotten their investment out. That's the entire deal seemed designed to benefit Bush. So inside baseball, for about $86 million, Bush and 70 investors bought this team. Among the investors were William O. DeWitt Jr., Mercer Reynolds III, fellows who had bailed out W's Busto Energy. This new deal was certainly a natural for DeWitt, who grew up around baseball and whose father served as general manager of the Detroit Tigers. So I'm going to skip down a little bit. Since typically sports teams' ownership is a badge of pride, yet as with many other ventures involving George W. Bush, many of the people who invested in the Rangers with him preferred to remain below the radar. Okay. Let me move down some more. So let's talk about W's domain. I want to get to the part where they... Hold on. It's a lot. So at the end of the day, what it boils down to is George W. Bush, when he bought the team, they needed a new stadium, and that stadium was bought with HUD money. And on his team of consortium, he also had Cantrell, who was responsible for selling Jerry Curl products to our community. Matter of fact, he made millions of dollars off of that. So,
no, say that again. Who is responsible for telling you to let that soul glow? Who was that again?
What's his name? Cantrell.
Yeah, go on, put them chemicals on your head. You ain't gonna need that brain later.
Because he sold a knockoff version of what the celebrities were wearing in their head.
Yeah, I've sold in all them Family Dollars and community.
Yeah, Coma Cantrell. Thanks, Cliff. So he partnered with George W. Bush to buy the Texas Rangers, him and 68 other investors. But what you don't know is Wave Nouveau. That's what it was called? Okay. But what you don't know is where that money came from. That money came from HUD Section 3 funding. That's your money if you live in Arlington, Texas. Because it served the community and he hired people in that area, he was able to do that. And not only that, he was able to have political favor because of the stadium. You figure he put a brand new stadium in Arlington, Texas. What is that going to do for his governorship and then for his bid for presidency?
Yeah.
That puts his name out there.
Bingo.
But the thing that people don't realize is that all these deals that the Bushes were able to commandeer had a lot to do with using HUD money.
And what is HUD money again, if you don't mind me asking?
HUD money is money that is reserved for us. Basically the PIH codes.
Public Indian Housing, PIH.
Anytime that there's a foreigner or somebody who's doesn't look like you that has a store in your area, they're using that money because you're not using it. Why? Because you don't know it exists and you don't know how to access it and you don't know where to go to get it and you don't know who to talk to. And why is Donald Trump upset with the Bushes? Think about it. He's on the outside looking in. When he was trying to get into the casino game, he couldn't. Why? He has no ties to this land.
None whatsoever.
That's why when people put that comment about him saying, well, they don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians, they put that there not even knowing why he did that. They just use it because he said it. But they didn't know. Well, I ain't gonna say they didn't know. More than likely, they probably didn't understand the depth of why that was being stated.
Uh-huh. And it should help some people wipe the smoke away from their eyes to start realizing who they consider Native Americans. Stop letting your eyes fool you.
You start banging on these Native Americans and start calling some of these colonizers and calling them $5 Indians. So how are you considered a $5 Indian when you can trace your lineage all the way to a prominent chief who was part of one of the largest tribes in the Five Nations?
Moha.
So are they $5 Indians? Because if you look at them, they would look like $5 Indians to you. But they got more ties to this land than you do.
Because they know who they are.
Go to Moon says 8-cent tax on anything you buy in Arlington, Texas. Rent a car, and they have what they call a Cowboys tax. Free says that's the same setup as the Tiger Stadium in Ford Field in downtown. Cliff says they had the city to vote on whether to move the stadium from Irving to Arlington. The whole time they knew they were moving. Yeah.
It's nothing but theater, but a show. Hands quicker than the eye.
So while people are going around begging the government to take money from our people, take land from our people and give it to them, they're literally bypassing money that's sitting right there looking at them. One, because they're not even in their own communities. This money is in everybody's community. And if you took the time to talk to the people in your community and reach out to the HUD representatives in your community, you might be able to access some of this money. But since you're scared, you're going to leave it for somebody else. The main people that you claim that you can't stand, that you get a check from. But
you say it again, because they probably missed it. There's a HUD representative in every community. All neighborhoods have them. Just got to reach out and start knowing your community.
But if you're scared to talk to people that don't look like you, then I guess you'll never get that money. Crickets? No? No smart remarks? No comments? No comebacks? Oh, okay.
Whole lot of silence. Whole lot of.
Cliff Tips says they're building brand new toll roads through the same freaking area as the old Texas Stadium.
Offer your money. And then gonna tell you not allowed over here. Ain't that something?
You don't get involved in your communities. How are you going to help your communities? Because I could have 5,000 YouTube followers, but that don't do a daggone thing for my community. If none of them people that follow me on YouTube are in my community. I'm just saying. So what's really important?
They want debates. I'm going to say it like this. They want debates. Why you ain't out here debating these city officials, your local congressmen and politicians, your local HUD representative on how these funds are being dispersed in your neighborhood? Y'all 5-star debaters. I'm going to keep it 100. When you look at our history and our ancestors held debate, they wasn't debating against each other against their ideologies. They was out here debating the powers to be to make changes with the system or to get access to the funds in the systems. 1968, Fair Housing Act. Undump my rant real quick.
That's okay. Oh, never mind. I know why they're not doing it, because they're doing it under the code of secrecy and sacredness. They don't want anybody to know what they're doing. That's because you ain't doing nothing. Let's be real. Because if you was doing something, you would show it.
Keep it 100.
All it's
Come on, all
being.
this research and studying, you can't find public knowledge. What are we really doing, fam? What are we really doing, relative? No degree for this. This is public knowledge on public accessible websites. Ever since, what, 1968 it's been public knowledge?
So basically over 50 years.
Yeah.
But I get it because you're scared to talk to people that don't look like you, and they're not gonna let you swindle them. You rather take advantage of your own people.
Sound like swindling to me.
Because one thing I know is you won't dare come in my neighborhood and try that swindling stuff. I promise you. I bet that you come on over to Woodbridge. I dare you. I double dog dare you. I trap a dog dare you. You won't do it. You'll stay right where you at on YouTube, because you won't do it in your own community.
It's time for us to get refocused and get our eye on the ball. Get in the game and start playing. Stop the childishness, stop the foolery, and let's get to work. All our communities, I'm going to say it again, all of our communities have this. And it's not just talk. I mean, I think we can speak about it now. Haven't we been in communication with HUD representatives in the community?
Yeah.
If I may speak on it?
Yeah.
If it's cool?
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's public information. I mean,
I'm all right with it. I mean, we ain't no gatekeepers over here.
You know, I mean, we're not telling you something just to be telling you something. We're telling you because ourselves have been in negotiation and talking with HUD representatives, talking to the powers that be, making sure the road to accessing these funds and stuff is clear, so we can start getting to work and start watching other people come to our neighborhoods using our funds, building in our neighborhood, but none of the benefits ever come down to our neighborhood. Come on now. What we gonna do? I'm gonna say it again. Barbecue or mildew, what we gonna do? Time is of the essence. Stop the playing.
and again, for those that are going under the guise of we're doing stuff in the background and we're doing stuff that's secret, I'm not concerned, and we're not concerned with the stuff that you're doing that's going to benefit your community, that's only going to benefit and only can benefit your community, and it wouldn't be necessary for you to share. So that's not what I'm talking about, because there are certain programs that are only going to benefit your community because that's your community and that's specific to your community. But again, you can't show nothing. There is nothing that you're doing in the background that no other community can benefit from. Nothing. So everything's a secret. Everything's sacred. That sounds suspicious to me.
Everything?
So, Grand Rising, Pamela Hall.
Peace, peace.
So at the end of the day, it's all about what are you doing today? Not what you did yesterday. Not what you did 2 days ago. Not what you did 10 years ago. Not what you did 2 years ago. What are you doing today that our people can benefit from starting today? Today.
We're going to start walking out from our dwellings and start conversations with your local political people. When with this information that you're learning, are you going to take the time to go to a HUD website and read up on what we're telling you? When? Because they've been doing it for like the last 50 years. We're showing you how it's done.
Better yet.
Now it's up to you to get information and apply it.
Here's one. When are you going to stop guessing about tribes and go talk to some tribes? You know, the ones that have actual chiefs that were voted in, that have a council, that do powwows. When are you going to start doing that? I'll wait.
Nice.
Because there's over 1,000 that are state recognized. There's over 500 that are federally recognized. You don't have one reservation near you? Not one. Not one. You don't have not one tribe near you. Not one. Not one. Nan. Zero. Zilch.
Forget about the reservations or anything being near you. You ain't got one question to ask somebody else. Ask the tribes, the real chiefs. Come on, man. Make a phone call at least.
Look at it this way. Many are asked, oh, how is it possible? How they gonna get the funds, the finances to help the tribes and stuff? We're telling and showing you the mechanism on how we do what we do. This is what the Continental Assembly is bringing to the table. This is our mechanism to help us achieve our end game, self-sufficiency. So again, are we going to allow our time to be distracted by wasteful debates and foolish back and forth, he say, she say? Are we finna clean up our neighborhoods, clean up our areas, clean up our culture, and move forward to a brighter day 7 generations down the line? Because I don't understand how this information we keep releasing, the decision should not be hard. All it takes is a choice. If you want change, then choose to be better.
Ooh.
Choose to use the life that you have to represent something that on this day right here, I refuse to let something show an image that disrespects my culture. We so quick to bang on somebody else when they appropriate our culture, but what about when our own do it for their personal gain? Are we going to be hypocrites? Are we going to take this information and take this chance to start a shining bright new light and start moving forward? The time is now. What are we waiting for? What are we afraid of? It has been in existence since 1968. We dropped the ball. Let's pick it up and go.
Right.
Narrative is created by anybody else other than what we suggest and what we put out that we're about. Autonomous assemblies' only goal is to help those who have heard that they have Indian in their family or want to know if they have Indian in their family, find out if that's the case. Once they find out that's the case, help them tie into their tribe. Once we help you tie into your tribe, we help you and we help your tribe. And then we wash, rinse, repeat. That's all we're concerned about. We are not trying to tell you who you are. We are not here to tell you who you are not. If throughout your genealogy, and let's not talk about the DNA side of things, but if throughout going through your family tree, you find that you are fill in the blank, then we will do our level best to help you find that tribe and get more access to that tribe. Our job is not to discourage you from anything that you want to self-identify as. If you want to self-identify yourself as a toaster, have at it. If we can help you, we'll do it. But what we're not here to do is distract from our mission, nor distract you from your mission. If what you intend is different from what we intend, we wish you the best and hope that you're doing what you're supposed to do to further those people that you're trying to help. If not, that's your business. Because over here on the Conscious Assembly, I promise you, we minding ours. I'll relinquish the mic.
Those are all facts, sir.
So again, take the time out. If you haven't started your genealogy, start today. And if you have, help someone else start their genealogy. And at the same time, start being active in your communities. Start finding out what resources and services are in your community. It's there. Everybody else is accessing it but you. I'm gonna say again, the time is now. The information is here. 5 minutes. Hood.gov, first page. Read the history. We have a brain to think for ourselves. Let's stop waiting for people to tell us and tell us what we need to do when it's right in front of your face, closer than your nose. We've said before, the conditions of our childhood and our parents' childhood didn't have to be. Now that we know this is true, what are we going to do to change it for our children's children? Or y'all just want to party? See who can get the most likes. See who's debating who. With this information from this day, after this show, the internet should be so hot with so many people looking into this info. Do not let it go to waste, because the other side's not.
They already tied in. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones.
What you said again? I couldn't hear you.
I said the other side is already tied in. The people that you're trying, the people in government that you think that you're able to remove and get off your land. Well, you first of all, you got to prove it's your land. And mentally stating that you were here first is not proof that you were here first. Who do you tie into? What tribe do you tie into? If you can't prove that, I'll bet almost anything that you ain't taking nothing. Ain't nobody gonna give you nothing. So stop begging for it. That's just my opinion.
LJ Free says it's like looking at a live ball on the field and wondering if you should pick it up and run with it or not. It's not called public Indian housing by chance.
And who marched for this and fought for this again?
It would have to be some Indians, but I don't think people understand who the Indians are.
Martin Luther King, Fair Housing Act.
And it wasn't originally called public Indian housing, right?
Yeah, originally. And over time, they changed it to HUD to hide what it really was for. But if you still go to the site, it tells you.
Yeah, they ain't edit that.
They didn't edit. They couldn't edit what it is, the history of it, how it came about, who it's supposed to serve, how it's served, how you qualify for it.
And for those that are confused, it's called Public Indian Housing Act, not Public Reservation Act.
Nice. Stop playing.
So these are for the Indians that are not on the reservation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But they read them.
Oh, they well researched. Scholars. You found that though. Okay.
Arthur Gray asks, he says, "Hey brother, how do I get started with you guys? I have an ancestry account. I have been doing my genealogy for almost 2 years. I need help with a couple of brick walls I have. So how do I talk to you?" Send your email to atanchasassembly@gmail.com.
Yeah, I got his email. I got his email and stuff, yeah.
Yep, hit us up, Arthur Gray.
So what we are doing, so I don't want to be accused of only talking and not doing anything. What we're doing is we are creating hangouts based on your state. So also let us know what state that your ancestors are in, so we can create a group community that's going to be able to continue to build, and we help one another based off of the state. And we ask that you do as much of the information and research as you can on your own. Telling us your mom and your daddy name, don't do too much to help us. If you can, if possible, if you have at least one line that's going back to at least 1850s, 1840s, and you can provide the birth date and the death date of one or both of those third or fourth generation grandparents, along with the county, that will help a lot.
Yes, the counties are very, very important.
Pamela Hall says, not that, no sell out the other information. What information are you talking about, Pamela?
She might be talking about the website and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop it again.
Free says they flood public knowledge with Section 8 voucher program information and stay super hush hush on the other HUD section. Shaking my head. Well, at the end of the day, like you say, numbers were discovered, not invented. So if there's a Section 8, what happened to the numbers that preceded and the numbers that follow 8?
Well, they started with Section 8, don't they? That's what everybody knows.
No. You are thought wrong.
HUD codes is fake.
Yeah, HUD codes is fake. We all agents. Well, that's good. That's more money for us. More money for us in our communities. So if that's what you want to believe.
Tell that to the NFL. Tell that to the NFL. Tell that to the NBA.
No, tell that. No. Tell that to the farmers markets that you go to. Tell that to the what are those foreign markets that people go to where the food is fresher? What they call Whole Food stores, not Whole Food stores. What they call?
Yeah, that's pretty much like farmers market. Pretty much, that's what it's called.
Those farmers markets that you go to. Guess what money is being used? Your money. So why you
going in? Walmart, or even your local Walmart.
Walmart.
Well, you know Indians don't shop at Walmart, man. Not real ones anyway.
Yeah. That little community store that's owned by that foreigner that's not you. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that came from?
And we're not banging on them for doing it because they got the information and someone shared the information with them. They did the research and they got access to the money. So we're sharing this information with you. Hopefully you'll do the research and hopefully you'll get the money. But this is what I know about our community, and it's sad because we're telling you to do it, you're not gonna do it. And not only that, but you'll try to convince other people not to do it because we're agents or we're not here for your health and we're new and you were here for 10 to 15 years and you was dropping this information. I really don't care about all that. My question to you right now is, what are you doing right now? I don't care how long you've been here. Because if we want to talk about how long somebody's been here, as Indians or indigenous as we all claim, we've been here for a long time. Who's running stuff? The newcomers, right? The newcomers are the ones that's running this. So how long you been somewhere is irrelevant. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now because we've been here the longest, correct? So if we've been here the longest, it's all based on how long somebody been somewhere. Why are we not in control? I'll wait.
You know me. I'm going to say how it cut. You better leave that how long you been here and you the first doing this and that, because I'm going to ask you like this. So how you don't know about HUD Section 3 and it been in existence since 1968? What are you really doing?
Stop playing.
Come on, man. What type of work are we really doing? We trying to brag to see what we can pull up out of history? Are we supposed to be doing this to be finding what went wrong and how to fix it? And what can we do to be better?
I got time to waste.
Showtime at the Apollo need to stop now. Let's get out of this social popularity contest, because that's what it really is. A social popularity contest. People come to a forum to live out a fantasy and a facade on who they want people to think they are or think they're doing.
Arthur Gray says, I'm in Florida, but people from South Carolina and on a couple of my second great grandparents were born in 1800 and done 1835 or so. So yeah, Arthur, just
yeah, we're gonna start a South Carolina back chat.
Yeah,
definitely. Anybody else got an ancestor state? Obviously, you can post it here in the chat. We got Texas.
No, Pamela Hall. That wasn't directed towards no one in the chat, no one that's out here doing their work, finding out their people. That's directed at the ones to self-proclaiming to be the speakers for our community, the know all end all. That's who that's directed at. That's my fault for not putting the address, so I come back and put an address on it. That's directed at anyone in our community proclaiming to be the #1 scholar, Mr. Know-It-All, macho on the block.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, how did you miss this?
Oh, she said, LOL, don't take it like that. I thought I knew about HUD. That's the issue.
Oh,
A lot of people
no.
probably thought they
I
knew
was
about
taking it that way, Pamela Hall. No time ever. But I did have to put an address on that to let it be known that was meant. Every intention, every word.
Mm-hmm.
The days of playing and taking advantage of our people are over. We did not build this for likes. We did not build this for popularity. We did not even build this to be seen and known. We built this for the love of our people.
Nice.
We built this because we discovered a mechanism and needed a way to make sure we can spread it to all of our people to help our tribes and our nations rise again.
Because at the end of
So
the
when
day,
oh, go ahead.
at the end of the day, if you really care about your people, shouldn't you go where your people at and go get them? Just asking.
Mhm.
If you really care about your people, I would assume, and making an assumption is dangerous. But if you really care about your people, don't your people live in your neighborhood?
Hmm.
Don't your people share your last name? Don't your people look like you? Don't your people live in the areas that your people are from? So if you really care about your people, why do you not start in your community? Unless you're not telling the truth.
Unless you're just collecting a check.
But they're your people. Okay. I ain't never seen your people. What your people look like? What your people do for a living? How many of your people live in your neighborhood? How many people have benefited from the information that you're providing since they're your people? I don't know. Just something to think about. They're your people though. But don't nobody in your community know you. Can't nobody in your community vouch for you. How many of the people in your community are actually subscribers to your channel or even know you? Something to think about. Because at the end of the day, more people know me in Woodbridge, Virginia than know me on YouTube. And if more people know you on YouTube than in your community, that might be a problem. Now, if you're new to your community or there's some extenuating circumstances, I can understand that. But if you're claiming to be doing something for the indigenous, Indian, fill-in-the-blank community, and the people that you live near, you look like you and don't know you or know you an Indian, and they won't go on record to say they know you an Indian and you can't record them, suspect. Just saying.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Whole lot.
Or a lot.
So, I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, anybody's got a problem with what I said, you know where I live.
On the corner, give it to them, but they don't want.
So,
Peace, James Gilmore. See you next time.
And that's it. We're just letting it be known the days of the foolishness and distracting and the waste of our people's time has come to an end. The true narrative is time to rise and spread it. Let's stop letting our own make a fool of us.
Thanks.
If we want better, we got to clean our house down. We can't keep saying this. We got to take responsibility for what we allow to display us. We have to start taking responsibility and start holding people accountable that only want to show the worst of our communities. But y'all want to be entertained at the expense of your children's future. Go ahead, though. Count me out.
Yeah, go ahead, though, but count me out.
you know something? I just thought of something. You know what? I may have been wrong. I just thought of something, Bones. Maybe their cameras on their phone only work in their house or only in their car.
That's probably right.
That's what it is. Those camera phones don't work anywhere
In the
other
community.
than the areas that we see them in. They just don't operate like that. So I guess their plan is limited or something. So maybe that's it. So I apologize for those that have limited access with your smartphone. So my bad.
There you go.
So, and then again, like Tim May said, with agents and all this and that, just research what we telling you. Start reading a lot of these companies and see where their fundings come from. Matter of fact, you don't even go that far. Just talk to your local neighborhood HUD representative. That's it. Start there.
So I got a better one. These health food stores that y'all go to and get your all natural remedies and stuff like that. Why don't you talk to the owner and find out how their business is set up?
But that'll hurt you though.
I mean, it's easy to talk to them. Hey, how you doing? Can I ask you a question? You know, stuff like that. I mean, you should be used to talking. You do a lot of it on YouTube. And ask the people in your community. Don't go across seas and ask somebody. Talk to people where you live at.
Sound too much like right to me though.
Yeah, they won't do it. It's okay though. We'll hear some excuse why they can't do it. Oh yeah, secret, sacred. It's only going to benefit my community. You don't need to know what I'm doing. Again, all that stuff is talk, man. Period, point blank. Yeah, I know you were first. I know you were here first. I know we're new. We're the new guys. We're not here for the community, but yet we done more for our community in the past 2 months than you done in 2 years. No, let me rephrase that. We've shown we've done more for our community in the last 2 months than you've shown in the last 2 years. I thought one of the conscious community mottos was show and prove, right? Is that no longer a motto? No. It's no longer a motto. That no longer exists.
I guess when it blowed up in your face, it don't.
So it's tell and lie. Is that the new motto?
Tell a lie.
Tell a lie. So we're no longer taking advantage of the opportunities that we have to show with all these camera phones and these smartphones that cost as much as computers, but can't nobody turn them on and show what they're doing. We're just gonna talk and give people the impression that we're doing something. Okay, I get it. Lights, camera, action.
Cheese.
We're not here to make you feel comfortable. We're not here to make you feel good. We're not here to unite with people that are scammers. This is about accountability. This is about who's gonna vouch for you. And again, if you got a problem with that, stay away from me. Or if you got a problem with that, you want to have a conversation, you can either call me or come see me. But I doubt you'll do either because you're probably scared. And not that you're scared of me. You're scared of the truth.
Go on, keep living that old beautiful life.
So anybody got anything else they want to share or say? We can always end up on a lighter note. We can't keep stepping on people's toes. We can offer them Band-Aid or something, can't we? At the end of the day, if you want help, we'll help you. We're not gatekeepers. But at the end of the day, you got to know this. If you want our help, we're not dealing with no craziness. You just don't let anybody in your house. So don't expect us to just let anybody in our house.
No craziness, no laziness.
You're not just going to let anybody talk to you any old kind of way. So don't think you're going to be able to talk to us any old kind of way. You're not going to let anybody scam your family. Well, you might. But don't expect us to let anybody scam our family. So if you want to have a conversation with us, or you want to talk to us, just best believe it will be recorded. And the reason why it's being recorded is because my mentality is this.
I'm not going to ask you anything that's sacred, and I'm not going to ask you anything that's secret. But if you're scared to have a recorded conversation, that means you got something to hide. That already means right then and there that you cannot be trusted.
We are 100% transparent.
And which I really find interesting because your back chats are recorded, but you act like or you pretend that they're not. But that's a whole nother story. So we're here to help you. That's if you want it.
Facts. If you want it.
Arthur Gray says, how are they calling you agents? The one thing that led me to you guys is that you are the only group that is helping people with the most important step, and that's genealogy. Well, Arthur, I'm not going to say we're the only group that's helping with genealogy because there are a lot of groups out there that talk about genealogy. So I can't say that they're not helping. I know that because I'm busy minding my business, so I don't try to keep track with everybody what they're doing. But at the end of the day, they may not be. And again, I'm gonna look at it from a different perspective. They may be helping people get back to their tribe. They may be helping people do their genealogy. The problem is they're not letting the audience know. And because they're not letting the audience know, then the audience thinks that they're not doing anything.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple months ago, TMH, maybe a month ago, about that same matter. Like, what's so secret about what you're doing if you're helping with genealogy? Like, we out here, we're gonna say it every day. It's important. So ain't no secret that we're helping people with it.
Yeah, so I'm not sitting here saying that people aren't doing anything. I'm saying that if you are, I don't need you to show me for me because you don't affect me. But there are a lot of people that need help, and if you have the opportunity to help them, then help them.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I mean, it's just that simple.
Carcan Indians that needed that message.
So at the end of the day, people need to see what you're doing. They need to see that you're helping people. So my thing is, if you're saying that you're doing stuff, the only way for people to know that you're doing stuff because they don't live in your community is to show them. And if you're not willing to show them, the question is why not? And don't give me this crap about you got a lot of stuff going on in the background and you don't want nobody to find out what's going on. I've been in a lot of back chats. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the back chat that can get you put on the BIE list. So stop it. The lies in here, the lies in now. So if you ain't doing nothing, man up, woman up, and say you ain't doing nothing, or at least start doing something, or at least start telling people you're doing something. So what you're saying, Arthur Gray, is I'm not, I don't know if they're helping people with genealogy or not. What I've heard and what I've seen is that people don't know that they're helping people with genealogy. How about that? So this is a public service announcement to help those that are talking about genealogy, that are doing the genealogy and helping people, but don't nobody know about it. So if don't nobody know about it, then they're going to assume that you're not doing it. So,
yeah,
that's coming from the chat, not me. So thanks, Arthur. Appreciate you, bro.
And if you are a group that's doing genealogy, get out there, man. Let people know what you're doing. Ain't no secret. Unless it is for you.
Anything else? Anybody got anything else to say? We got work to do.
Yeah, nothing else I think.
You break it up.
Think of.
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Arthur says, I have spent money with these people and got nothing. So I'm speaking from my experience with the so-called other leaders. Well, I'm sorry that has happened, Arthur, and unfortunately, that has happened with more than just you. And the thing that I'm sad to say and see is that people know that has happened to people like you, and they're still dealing with those same people because those people actually have viewership and they bring in numbers. So I apologize that has happened to you, and hopefully you'll be able to get some redemption. Grand Rising, Randy James. Hope all is well with you. Randy, I don't know about the genius part. I just know we're about accountability and we're about being very open and honest and straightforward with people, because the one thing I don't want us to do is create this narrative that the American Indian is a group of people that were so smart that all of a sudden we woke up enslaved. and we don't know what happened. And all of a sudden, the people were so much smarter than us, and we all of a sudden forgot how to be Indian and forgot who we were. And all of a sudden, now we can't do anything. That's not the case. So we all about accountability over here. We all about cleaning up our steps and our porches. So.
Yep.
It's my part.
Antonio says silence on the sacred door. Of course, if you got secrets, like I said, there things. Certain things need to be secret, and some things are sacred, and I get it. But everything is secret and sacred. That's a little shaky to me. So, just a thought. Okay, but he says, we appreciate the work that you and Autonomous Assembly team are putting in. Countless, no sleep, no days off, traveling behind the scenes, work, etc. The list goes on. Thanks, brothers and sisters. Well, Kerry, you part of it too, because I got a chance to learn. I got a chance to learn a lot about New Orleans. I have a greater respect for that area because now I know now I know what the average flooding is like in New Orleans. Knee-high water, yeah.
Well, hold on, teammates. Not only are we talking about doing in our own communities, we're packaging this up and taking it to all of our communities. And that's why it's so important for the listeners to activate and start doing the work. Because if you're not tying into your community, tying into your tribes, and the resources and the stuff we come across can't help us as a whole. Just an add-on real quick.
No, I mean, that's right. That's real. So, that's what's up. So, I said all I need to say for today, for this morning. I'm just anxious to get to work. Get the application.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it's normal. It's always been fun with the relatives. Enjoyed this rising. Looking forward to tomorrow's rising. Until then, peace.
Peace, y'all.